Hello Long Beach and welcome to Long Beach Local News. Today we have a special broadcast of the memo. It's the first day of June today and we have a laser focus on important news coming out of City Hall. For those of you who don't keep such a keen eye on City Council meetings, they occur every Tuesday with the exception of the last Tuesday of the month. Today we have a special guest who certainly knows her way around both City Hall as well as the courtroom. She's the Honorable Susie Price and Councilwoman of the 3rd District. Welcome to the memo.
Thank
I'm
you.
so happy to have you.
Thanks for having me.
So I want you to forgive me. This is our first time having an actual City Council person here. So, I'm a bit nervous.
Oh, please. Thanks for having me. It's exciting to be your first guest, first council member guest.
Yes. So a lot of people don't know that aside from being a full-time mother and a prosecutor, you're a councilwoman. What has that been like balancing those roles inside of the pandemic?
Well, that's a really great question. Obviously, my most important job in life is that of being a mother. And both of my kids' lives were completely changed as a result of COVID and having to transition to online school. So that was a little bit challenging because I work full time and I wasn't able to be there with them to monitor the transition in school. In the beginning, I took some time off and tried to do some homeschooling, but then I think they got the hang of it, and the school also had some programming that was great for the kids so that the parent didn't have to be there the whole time. And so we worked that out. That was the first concern for me. And then I'm a prosecutor, but I manage a courthouse. That's my job as a prosecutor. Is I very rarely try my own cases now. I now supervise a large team, and I manage all the operations at the Westminster Courthouse. And so we didn't close down. We were open every day because obviously defendants who are charged with a crime have a constitutional right to a speedy trial, as do victims under Marsy's Law. So we've been open every single day since the rest of the world shut down as a result of COVID. So I've been going to work every day with my team and making sure that both the victims and the defendants' constitutional rights are met through the criminal justice system.
Okay, so you're not sleeping a lot. You got Well, I invited you on the show today because we learned that you have some exciting news to share about the Long Beach Rowing Association. What is the news?
So I'm super excited about something, and it really occurred to me recently when we were having discussions about the Belmont Pool, and one of the coastal commissioners talked about competitive swimming. She herself had been a competitive swimmer, and she talked about access to competitive sports for people who might not otherwise have access and opportunity. And so I started to think about my district and where it's located, and a lot of people don't know this, but Marine Stadium is a venue of a former Olympic rowing site. The Olympics for rowing were held there, and hopefully someday again in the future they'll be considered as a site for the rowing competition. And so, I thought about the rowing program that is offered at Marine Stadium and how there are so many kids around the city who probably don't know anything about the sport of rowing, don't know how to get involved in the sport of rowing, and as a result aren't eligible for collegiate opportunities in rowing, whether that be admissions assistance or scholarships. My own boys got involved in rowing. It was a new sport to me. I learned a lot about it as a result of my boys being involved. And I can tell you, there are so many opportunities there that really aren't meaningful opportunities if you don't know about them. Especially for female athletes. Obviously, I have two boys, so Title IX and female athletic scholarships won't impact them, but there are so many athletic scholarships for female athletes who are rowers. And when you look at the ethnicity and the gender of those students getting those athletic scholarships, you're going to, large and number of them are going to be female, white, Asian, is what we see a lot in the Southern California region. We just do not see a lot of people outside of that group getting those collegiate opportunities. So I thought about opening it up for a summer camp to introduce students throughout this city who wouldn't otherwise know about the sport, introduce them to the sport of rowing, teach them the fundamentals, and let them row in Marine Stadium, which is an Olympic rowing venue. And if they like it, then they can apply for a 1-year membership to the club team where there is competitive rowing. And I will personally raise money for every student who wants to participate in the club team. It's about $8,000 a year. And I've committed to raising that money myself for as many students as want to participate.
So let me get this right, and I'm sorry to cut you off.
No problem.
So this program is being funded not through the general fund, it's being funded from your office.
Yes, so every council member gets what's called Divide by $9 that we can use for programming or infrastructure needs in our districts, and it's not a lot of money. And in fact, the past few years we haven't really gotten any because it's a matter of priorities and how we allocate money citywide. Where we have the opportunity to do some divide by nines, different council members will decide what they want to spend that money on to support the needs in their district. For me, unfortunately, paving a street or paving an alley are so expensive that they would wipe out the entire divide by nine budget that I have. So I think about what's the biggest return on the investment for us. We do a lot of small projects like pothole filling and tree trimming, but I've never done a program that's of this magnitude. So this would be $10,000 that would go to the Long Beach Rowing Association to help run this program. They would have adult coaches who have some experience with the Olympics and rowing, who would be the ones that would take the students out onto the water. And then they would have youth coaches that would be peer navigators for the students that are participating in the camp, who would do the dry land exercises and the team building programs. And we would use all of their boats.
You've mentioned the Olympics a few times, and I want to remind folks that when we talk about the Olympics in Long Beach, a lot of that is centered around your district, the 3rd District, whether it's the Belmont Pool, which has had a huge legacy inside of the Olympics. You've also talked about rowing. What I'm curious about is this. I was on the call, the Coastal Council Commission, the California Coastal Commission, where Commissioner Turnbull Sanders, she happens to be a black woman, but she also was a competitive swimmer. And I heard, you and I think we both heard the emotion that she emitted as she talked about the realities of being a competitive swimmer. And she talked about the expense and the exclusiveness of it. What I'm encouraged about is it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, you were on the same call I was. You heard the same thing, and this is a response to that.
Well, it wasn't until she said that a light bulb went off in my head, because I wasn't thinking about access to the pool from the standpoint of how to make people competitive swimmers. I was thinking, how do you teach people how to swim? How do we provide programming for our seniors with aquatics in mind? That's what I was thinking. I wasn't thinking, how do we teach people to be competitive swimmers? And when she said that, I thought, yes, there are tons of scholarships available for people that we are training out of this city to become competitive this or that. And aquatics is a huge part of the city that maybe not every youth in this city has access to. Aquatics scholarships potentials are huge. You look at the number of aquatic scholarships that come out of Wilson High School, you look at the number of Olympians in the sport of aquatics that come out of East Long Beach, the number is huge. We should be spreading that citywide. We have the potential citywide to have world-class athletes, but if they don't know about an opportunity and they don't know how to play the sport, it's really not an opportunity.
I'm so glad you're saying it. Let's talk about citywide. And I know you have to go, you've got a lot of stuff to do, but I've got you here now. I'm going to hold you as long as I can. We're talking about, I love the term citywide, because too often we hear people, talking about and using the term the tale of two cities here in Long Beach. But when I think about what you're presenting as an agenda item today at council, what I'm hearing is that this program is reaching out to Cabrillo, to Jordan. Well, these are the areas where a lot of the shootings are happening in Long Beach. So this is my question then. You represent one of our more affluent districts. What role, if any, does a council person in another district that's not so impacted by the surge in shootings, what role of accountability do you have to the entire city?
I think that's a great question. I mean, yes, we represent our districts, but we represent the entire city as council people. And the diversity of this city is what makes this city beautiful. And that term, the Tale of Two Cities, people who know me well know it just really rubs me the wrong way because it's more divisive than it is building bridges. And so I think about the role that I have, it's to provide opportunities for people, meaningful opportunities. You can say everyone has the same opportunity, but if they don't know about an opportunity, they don't really have the opportunity, right? So for me, it's providing the opportunities and making the opportunities accessible to people all around. Our program is open to Poly, Cabrillo, and Jordan. And we'll look at other schools too, but those are the three schools that we've met with the administrators, and those are the schools that we're focused on because that is an area where we think this opportunity is not widely known. And so we want to make that opportunity available. But, you know, the duty is to make the entire city stronger, every corner of it. So what I tell people is, you know, we can't have the philosophy of this area has too much, let's give it less. Because we have areas in the city where we have residents who could afford to live anywhere in Southern California. They're choosing Long Beach. And those residents deserve to be represented. And their concerns need to be not judged, but listened to, regardless of what those concerns may be, even though those concerns may seem minimal as compared to concerns in another part of town. But that doesn't mean that the concerns in another part of town also don't deserve to have the attention and the merit that all of the council should be giving to it. So I think taking the concerns of each district seriously and meeting that district where they're at without judgment is what my responsibility is as a council member. I always just ask people, please don't judge the issues of import to people in my district. Don't be dismissive of them because they're choosing to live here, and they could live other places, but they're choosing to live here. And part of that comes with being mindful of the diverse environment where they live and being willing to support citywide activities, programs, and policies, but also not feeling ashamed to say, I don't like the potholes on my street, or the graffiti is really making me not happy about where I live. Yes, graffiti as compared to shootings, clearly it's not on the same spectrum. No one would ever say it is, but that doesn't mean you ignore or you judge the priorities of one community versus another. You make policies that make every district stronger together. And I think there's a possibility of doing that if we think about it in that way.
And those are the complexities of equity. This is what I love. You know, there's a junior crew program, right? And there's also the junior lifeguard program. Mm-hmm. Now, I've been very critical of the lack of diversity on the junior lifeguard program, but I was able to sit down with the chief of Marine for the fire department, and after our meeting, you know, what I left with was his heart is in the right place, he's trying his best with the policy, but there's an uphill task because we've got a lot of black and brown kids that simply cannot swim.
Yes.
What's important about your program is that I feel like it's a step in the right direction because, again, we've got a program that's saying, hey, here's an opportunity that we can actually bring more diversity to. And it's an example of a district like District 3 coming and saying, we're a family. Long Beach, we're a family. That's what I'm hearing.
Absolutely. I think it's my duty and my responsibility, and it's in my heart to open up whatever opportunities that I can open up to students all around this city. I grew up without the means to have participated in programs like that, and I would love it if a child who grew up like me, or even in a situation that's more dire than mine was financially, wouldn't it be amazing if that child was able to get into college or get a college scholarship as a result of this program? To me, that is success, is literally lifting up everyone around us.
That would be success. At our last show, we had a former CIC graduate from Poly. And what she was talking about was the fear that the community's having at Poly, that the CIC program, which is kind of the magnet there, where a lot of the black and brown kids are a part of, and it creates a gateway and a pathway for them to college. The reality is, universities, college is expensive. We can get kids involved in opportunities they didn't know about, and they turn out to be successful there.
Absolutely.
Those are the stories that we need in our city. And who knows? We could get another Olympic athlete, a winner, coming out of Long Beach, which is not uncommon.
Oh, I know we will, because I've seen some of the students who get athletic scholarships now, and not to take away from them at all, they're wonderful athletes, but I know that this city has better and more potential, and we just haven't tapped into it. But it's really not about the potential for the city, it's the potential to change lives. It's the potential to have opportunities you never thought you could have, and have someone provide that guidance to you and teach you the basics so that you can succeed. And that's what this program is about. And it's my privilege and my honor to offer it. And I've just been so, my soul has been so full of support and gratitude for the administrators and the teachers that we've talked to about this program, who've expressed excitement about it, without judgment, with full embracing of the heart behind it.
You've told me that in order to keep the program alive, if the kids like it after a year, your council office is going to be able to put in $10,000. If the kids like it, you've committed to supporting other fees, which are pretty high. So I'm going to let you have the last word, and I want you to speak directly to Long Beach. Tell them about what's going on and how they can help support.
Sure. So our camp is a 6-week program that's going to be free of charge with transportation vouchers for any students who need transportation. If after the 6 weeks, the 15 or 16 students, we're trying to decide how many we can max it out at because of the size of our boats. If after the 6 weeks, those students decide they like the sport of rowing and they want to learn how to be competitive rowers, then I will personally fundraise for each of those students to have a 1-year scholarship to the Long Beach Junior Crew, which is about $8,000 a year, and it'll cover their travel and their opportunity to compete in the sport of rowing. You can't get a college scholarship if you don't compete. And so once they start to compete, they'll be able to get the stats they need to put on their college applications for admissions assistance and scholarship dollars. And so if all 16 of those students want to participate, then I'm committed to raise $8,000 per student to get them that 1-year membership. And I'm going to be reaching out for help because I'm a government employee and I certainly can't fund that myself. But I will be reaching out to the Century Club and the Aquatics Capital and anyone else who wants to invest in seeing the youth in our city succeed. And this is a pilot program. If it's successful, we will continue this. But I'm just asking people to help me kick it off and see what we can do together.
Well, this is incredible news. Thank you so much, Councilwoman Price, for coming on.
Of course.
Let's do that elbow bump.
There we
Bam!
go.
Social distancing, folks. Look, you and your council colleagues are welcome on the memo anytime, and thank you again.
Thank you. It's
for
my
this
pleasure.
opportunity
Good
as
luck
well.
to you. I love that we're exploring different ways of delivering news. It's awesome. It's awesome. So congratulations to all of you for everything that you're doing here with the Long Beach Local News.
Well, thanks so much.
Of course.
While Councilwoman Price is rowing equity into the 3rd District, Councilwoman Mungo is bringing in the fireworks. Well, not quite. Councilwoman Mungo has an agenda item designed to help solve illegal fireworks this Independence Day. Last year, illegal fireworks were ablaze across the city. Aside from the obvious dangers to pets and babies, who are particularly vulnerable, with COVID-19 on the decline and hospitals less overwhelmed, Councilwoman Mungo's office anticipates that Long Beach residents are thirsty for low-cost and accessible activities. Following July 4th, 2020, the city adopted an illegal explosives fireworks action plan. The plan focused on 6 key areas. 1 is a supply chain. 2 was collaboration with regional cities. The other was state laws and legislation, including fines. 5th was community outreach and education. Lastly was data collection. Well, excuse me, Councilwoman Mungo has a plan to incentivize neighborhoods to do the right thing by encouraging block parties and waiving the city's fee. Her office imagines DJs, live bands, barbecues, and outdoor movies in exchange for taking a pass on illegal fireworks. City Council just might say, bring the party to the block. And that's exactly what we need in Long Beach. We need more parties. I want to move on to some other fireworks happening at the City Council and on the agenda today. And they have plenty of residents in Uptown up in arms. The agenda item regards Dan Pressburg and the proposed Pressburg Parkway. We have an image of that here. Well, it's the renaming of a pocket park beside the historic Dairy Creamery near DeForest Park. And that U.S. veteran and longtime community activist Dan Pressburg, well, he was snubbed by Councilman Al Austin when Vice Mayor Rex Richardson proposed naming the small pocket park Pressburg Parkway. For those of you who missed the story, here's how a community-based idea went from a thoughtful gesture to a game of dirty politics. Is that the right video?
Hold on, we're gonna come back.
Is that the right video?
Yeah, it's just not sized right.
Oh, okay.
To be honest, I think my son kind of wrote it right. I didn't really ask for that
So,
park to be named after me.
After
This is a
Councilman Al
community
Austin
park. It's
sidelined
about
Pressburg Parkway, community members rushed to Dan's defense. Many wrote letters on his behalf, and more than a dozen signed up for public comment at the next committee meeting that would consider the park's renaming. Well, to many residents' outrage, their public comment was turned away on a legal technicality. It was a mess. First, they blocked the park because Pressburg had no community support.
That's right.
Then, when the community support shows up, they can't be heard. But before that, all of these issues regarding Al Austin and Rex Richardson and Dan caught in the middle, here's the story to get you up to speed in case you missed it. Vice Mayor Rex Richardson wants to name honoring resident Dan Pressburg. Pressburg lives there in the historic Dairy home. Well, Al Austin says no, emphatically no. He doesn't want this pocket park to be named after Dan Pressburg. He says that Dan Pressburg just doesn't have the community support needed. So there's a lot going on, a lot of controversy at City Hall. What's your perspective on all this? Where do you stand?
You know, to be honest, I think my son kind of wrote it right. I didn't really ask for that park to be named after me. This is a community park. It's about having something that's a gym in North Long Beach that is really for the community, that provides activities and stuff like this. That was basically a junkyard next door. Before there was my son said that before there was a seed even planted over there for grass or a fence or anything like that, I was already taking care of it. So it's for the community. It's not about me. I mean, you know, since it was conceived, it was called Pressburg's Backyard. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, you know, it's just kind of an interesting thing. And I know, you know, Rex had this made as a birthday present for me.
This was a birthday gift.
This is a birthday.
Pressburg Parkway, City of Long Beach.
Yeah.
Well, look, we're rooting for you.
Thank you very much. Like
I said, the whole thing was outrageous. Fortunately, Vice Mayor Rex Richardson and Councilman Urenga have put Pressburg Parkway back on the agenda today, and we'll be monitoring the event very closely. Now to the consent calendar. At City Council today, there will be a lot of important information buried in the consent calendar. The consent calendar consists of agenda items that are lumped together as a package deal, and they're voted on in one full sweep. This means that there won't be a discussion from council people. There will be no public comment and just a single vote on a bag full of agenda items. Well, there's one agenda item we thought you should know about. It's the city's comprehensive annual financial report prepared by private accounting firm KPMG. It covers the fiscal year 2020 ending on September 30th. Well, inside of it, we learned some really cool trivia about Long Beach. Here's one. Do you know who the top 5 employers are in the city of Long Beach? Wait for it. Let me give you a chance. Well, looking at the clip here, coming in at number 1 is the Long Beach Unified School District. Next up is the city of Long Beach, followed by our frontline healthcare providers at Long Beach Memorial Hospital. Then there's the Long Beach VA, which came in at number 4, followed by our very own Cal State University of Long Beach. We also learned some startling news about the Long Beach water supply and our water fund. According to the forensic accountants at KPMG, as of January 2021, the Long Beach Water Department has nearly $700,000 in unpaid water bills. And they're more than 120 days past due. Unpaid sewer bills are also at about $100,000 in the red since January of this year. Well, looking at the green graph here, for 10 years ago, the water fund was at a surplus at about $15 million. Then in 2019, it took a nosedive to nearly zero. And in 2020, the water fund went into a more than $2 million deficit. And that's where we are right now. But the data provided by the accounting firm also shows a decline in population. In the city of Long Beach, looking at this blue graph, you'll notice that since 2016, Long Beach's population has been on a steady decline. The good news is that with a declining population, we're not likely to run out of water. The bad news is that the water fund is depleted. In related news, the redistricting lines are being redrawn in Long Beach. The realities of our population are front and center when it comes to this topic. Long Beach has a total of 9 districts, and while our total population has dropped, the number actually fluctuates by district and sometimes even by the neighborhood at the micro level. This was explained recently to the Long Beach Independent Redistricting Commission by the USC professor and her team who have been contracted to collect the data for redistricting in Long Beach. Politicians are paying close attention to redistricting because new lines could impact the political security of current incumbents. But local residents do have a voice in how the redistricting lines are drawn in Long Beach. So we want to bring this image back up because beginning on June 2nd, yes, that's tomorrow, residents and community members in the 1st District, represented by Mary Zendejas, Councilwoman Mary Zendejas, they can participate in one of the first community redistricting meetings. So if you care about issues like graffiti, shootings, property crimes, homelessness, and affordability, well, this meeting is important for you to attend. Now to some somber news regarding homelessness. Over this Memorial Day weekend, a crushing story occurred here in Long Beach. It was first reported at Streaming 562, and you can find them on Facebook. Well, when driving through a parking lot, a driver ran over a pile of what they believed were blankets. The debris turned out to be not debris at all, but a person who was crushed under the weight of the vehicle after impact. Firemen and paramedics responded to the scene, but were not able to resuscitate the woman. Fortunately, the driver stayed on the scene, and reports are that there was no sign of drug, alcohol, or distracted driving. Her death is a painful reminder of the unintended consequences of homelessness and encampments that dot our city north, south, east, and west. Just imagine a city so overcome with homelessness that there would be a risk of driving through a parking lot, parking your car during broad daylight, and running over a homeless woman asleep under a blanket. Well, you don't have to imagine that in Long Beach, because that's exactly what's happening in our city. So, of course, our thoughts go out, our prayers to the victim, her family, as well as the driver who unknowingly took her life. Now to the shooting surge spiraling throughout the city. Now that's a tongue twister. The shooting surge continues in Long Beach, but over the Memorial Day weekend, fortunately, there were no deaths. One shooting occurred in North Long Beach on the 6600th block of Long Beach Avenue, of Olive Avenue, just after 12 p.m. Saturday. Officers found evidence of bullet casings, but again, there were no victims hit. Well, earlier in May, the new Starbucks at the Uptown Commons in North Long Beach, around that same area, was hit by gunfire at 3 a.m. The business's window was shattered, and officers believe there may have been a burglary. But too often, North Long Beach gets a bad rap. While the community is struggling, there are plenty of signs of hope. I want you to see this clip here. There's a sort of business renaissance happening in Uptown. And over the Memorial Day weekend, North Division officers kicked off a new community policing program at a children's skate event at Houghton Park. The event was attended by not only the North Division, but also Vice Mayor Rex Richardson. But the 3-day span of shootings that occurred just at the foot of the Memorial Day weekend is only a snippet of the surge of shootings happening in Long Beach since the beginning of the year, when Mayor Garcia announced that the state of the city is strong. But when we report on the surge of shootings in Long Beach, the feedback from residents, well, to be quite frank with you, it's mixed. Some folks appreciate that Long Beach local news is keeping the community abreast. Others accuse our reporting of being mainstream sensationalism and factually inaccurate. However, the only reason we know about this violence is because we're reporting on it in live time at the crime scene when it happens. And if that impacts your sensations, your emotions, well, quite frankly, it ought to, because the levels of shootings happening in Long Beach is hurting children and families. As for our data, it isn't only accurate, but our data is taken from primary sources like committee meetings at City Hall, fiscal year budgets drafted and submitted by our own city manager to City Council. Our data also comes from FBI crime data that's compiled by the FBI after being submitted from the Long Beach Police Department. That's where our data comes from. But the reason that the data may give pause or might come as a shock to some residents is because the Long Beach Police Department doesn't provide comparable crime data and statistics to the public, as does, let's say, the Los Angeles Police Department. Reporters routinely and literally have to exercise their constitutional right just to get basic information from the LBPD regarding crime stats, because Long Beach local news is currently the only local news outlet that brings real-time video coverage of the shooting crisis happening in Long Beach. We serve as a valuable supplement for what city officials and our police department refuse to bring to the public. But here at the Memo, it's not about me being right. It's about all of us supporting the city that we love. which is why our team researches to make sure we get it right. And if we make a mistake, we're humble enough to take feedback directly from the community. Then if we get it wrong, we actually go live and we own up to it. We take accountability because we're not afraid to admit when we've made a mistake. But our reporting of the 3-day span of shootings at the end of May, that was accurate. It was the truth, and it was factual. You may have seen it before, but here it is again. Good morning. It's Sunday here in the city of Long Beach, and if you're a person who believes in the power of prayer, this city could certainly use your help considering the week we had. Good morning, and welcome to a special report of the memo being broadcasted on Long Beach Local News. We have a total of 9 districts here in Long Beach, and this week the districts that were hit the hardest with violent crime were the 6th, the 7th, the 8th, and the 1st. We're going to take you to the border of the 6th and the 1st district, where just last night a man was shot and wounded during a drive-by shooting. I'm here on Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue on the border of the 6th and the 1st district between 9th and 10th Street. It was here that a man was shot during a drive-by. He was rushed to the hospital and in critical condition. This is an historic street. Of course, it is named after Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but behind me is Gumbinder Park. Dr. Gumbinder was a pioneer in the healthcare industry, and in Long Beach is responsible for both the Museum of Latin American Art as well as a museum dedicated to our Pacific Island community here in Long Beach. After shooting the victim, the suspect raced down Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue, and police are still investigating the incident. It's important that we put this shooting into context. We're here at the border of the 6th and the 1st district. Well, the 6th district has experienced more than 24 shootings only since January. The chair of the Public Safety Committee is 6th District Councilwoman Suli Sorrow. She chairs the Public Safety Committee that recently met, where we learned that only one neighborhood in the entire city of Long Beach has what is called community policing. We're going to take you there. I'm across the street from 14th Street Park here in the Washington neighborhood. This is the only neighborhood in Long Beach where there is community policing. And what that means is police officers actually get out of their cars and go talk to neighbors. After a total of 6 months, the Public Safety Committee finally met in April. It was there that we learned about the pilot program, community policing, that's happening in this neighborhood. Well, it was only several weeks ago that a man was shot by police. He was brandishing a pistol, was killed in an officer-involved shooting right here in the Washington neighborhood. A few months ago, we were on the call with the Washington Neighborhood Association group. What we heard were some community members asking for more police, asking for even a gang task force. At the same time, there was another resident who spoke up on the conference call. He complained of misconduct by the gang unit. And that's where we are, a city that's torn, not only with shootings, but in how to address them. The string of violent shootings in Long Beach on Friday began here, the 2000th block of West Spring Street. I'm right beside the Gold Star Manor, a nonprofit organization started by American mothers who had lost sons and daughters in combat. Well, here in Long Beach, we're losing our young men to violence in our city streets. In Long Beach, 1 out of every 194 residents will be a victim of a violent crime, such as a shooting. Well, in the entire state of California, 1 out of 227 residents will be a victim of a violent crime. The reason our crime data is so high isn't only because of the amount of victims being hit. It also has to do with the frequency of shootings. You see, on Friday alone, on the 2000th block of West Spring Street, there was a shooting with no victim. Also, on the 4900th block of Daisy Avenue, again, there was a shooting with no victim. We'll take you there. I'm here in the 8th District on Daisy Avenue at the 4900 block. It was here that shots rang out. Neighbors reported that there had been a drive-by. Police came to the area of the shooting and found that there indeed had been a shooting, but could not find a suspect. Fortunately, there were no victims. Well, we're not too far from the Virginia Country Club and the luxury homes there. We're right beside an elementary school and standing right now in a very working class neighborhood. It's inside of this dynamic that shootings and drive-bys are happening in Long Beach, and this was one of only 3 that occurred on Friday. But only the night before, there was another shooting still here in the 8th District, only blocks away on 52nd and Pacific. It was there that a man barricaded himself inside of a home, firing at officers with what police found to be an assault rifle. We'll take you there now. I'm here at 52nd and Pacific, here in the 8th District, where only nights ago a man barricaded himself in a home with an assault rifle. The SWAT team was called in and brought him out safely, but only after he had fired and exchanged shots with police officers. Some residents and elected officials believe that the surge in shootings is a result of gang violence. We're not quite sure because the police department has not presented any data, substantive data, that shows evidence that that is the case. What we can tell you is that since the last term of Mayor Bob Foster, Long Beach has lost a total of 180 police officers. The anti-gang field team were among those officers. There were a total of 20, including 2 sergeants. That anti-gang field team would be responsible for investigating shootings and violent crimes, such as the ones people believe are related to gang violence in Long Beach today. Long Beach is only safer than 15% of American cities, according to FBI crime data in 2019. That data hasn't come out on 2021. Friday night is where I saw how dangerous Long Beach can get. In front of the Arlington Motel, a 17-year-old lost his life. I'm here now in the 7th District. Just behind me is the Arlington Motel. On Santa Fe Avenue, the cross street is Wardlow. It was here late last Friday night that there was a shooting involving teenagers, both of them around 17 years old. There were 2 victims. One was rushed to the hospital. The other died here on the scene. Only hours after the drive-by in the 8th District on Daisy Avenue, a young man, only 17 years old, lost his life right here. I'm Franklin Sims reporting for The Memo here in Long Beach. Don't forget that every week the Memo broadcasts on the Long Beach local news station. We have a weekly show. It begins at 11 a.m. This week, we're sitting down with a special panel of guests discussing pride, what it means to be gay and queer here in Long Beach, what it means in terms of this city. We're also sitting down with Councilperson Price. She has special and big news for anyone who cares about aquatic sports here in Long Beach. So join me live at 11 on The Memo with Long Beach Local News. I'm Franklin Sims, reporting truth to power. Of course, Long Beach is more than the sum of her shootings. She's far more than that. She's families. She's schools. She's us. She's our community. We're going to hang in here, and we're going to get through this together. I want to thank you for tuning in, Long Beach, because this is what we have, and we can restore this city. This is Franklin Sims in a special live broadcast of The Memo with Long Beach Local News. As always, we're happy to report truth to power.